Hey people, it's Mattanza Mafia-Fedora here today, and I've seen the news recently about Donald Trump's anti-immigration policies in the United States, particularly in the way that he's targeting Latinos, and how one of my all-time favorite actresses from my generation, Selena Gomez, has been driven to tears by the fact that Donald Trump has made Mexicans and other minorities a target for his bigotry, and in trying to justify every terrible policy that he has concocted, he is framing them as criminals, violent, drug addicts, and this is very painful for me, as I'm a Gaelic Englishman, an Englishman of Irish ancestry, and how my ancestors, both in England and in the United States, have faced such similar persecution for nothing other than being what we are. People squandered both our peoples for our different cultures, our different religions, our different accents, you name it, how we differ, they'll attack you for it. This is nothing new, but I think one of the hardest things about someone from my generation having to try to get used to is that, much like how prior to the prominence of Black Lives Matter became a thing, we foolishly assumed that racism had been defeated, how people had been able to just say, we've learned from our history, never again. And yet there are people out there, opportunists in every generation, which have just taken advantage of other people's economic woes and have found a convenient scapegoat in the entire English-speaking world. The Irish people, my ancestors, have faced some same old narratives that depict us as criminals, violent extremists of one type or another, and everything that people in the States are reporting about Mexicans and Mexican Americans by proxy, it is so eerily familiar that you take out the words Mexican, Irish, flip them round, it's just a tale as old as time. And the vast majority of people of Irish ancestry, of Italian ancestry, Mexican ancestry, we're just normal, everyday people that want to live our lives as best we can so that we don't have to have any unnecessary barriers to our own personal prosperity. And yet we're living in times where, much like in Nazi Germany, people felt that the prosperity of one came at the expense of the rest of their society's prosperity. That's how the Jews ended up persecuted throughout human history, just like the Irish, just like plenty of Hispanics, and that's how the Palestinian people are being persecuted at the moment. People take one look at them either for their skin color, their different religious views, or any other random, unnecessary barrier that only serves as a border in the minds of a bigot. And it's painful, so painful. I want to be getting on with my own writing, I want to be getting on with my own life, but knowing that the kind of discrimination that played a part in my own grandfather, Patrick Ruane, leaving England, that he was forced to emigrate to after the Easter Uprising in order to find work. He worked as a farm labourer in Hampshire, where I'm from, and eventually he migrated to Canada via America, where he ended up dying after he lost his wife. It's so hard for me to just get on with my own life, knowing that an entire community in the United States is going through what my community have faced all over the world. And I just don't know how to deal with this. I want to say that in many ways America is the only place where this sort of stuff could possibly gain political mainstream, but here in the United Kingdom, particularly in areas like the west coast of Scotland, my community have never exactly been safe from right-wing bigotry. And seeing the rise of Brexit supporters, the Reform Party, and yes, Nigel Farage ain't going away anytime soon. We're all dealing with so much, and I know exactly what Selena Gomez must be feeling right now, because where someone with her accent, and then in this country, my own accent, would be free from the bulk of persecution to a certain degree, those are still our people, and we feel like we are unnecessarily privileged at times for having something that just distinguishes out us amongst our peers, and it makes it very hard for you to want to identify with the country that's doing the persecution. I don't personally feel like I can disappear from identifying as English. It is my identity. I'm a Gaelic Englishman, and no one can take that away from me, any more than anyone can take away Selena's right to call herself an American, or any of her family, who have built lives in the United States, just as my aunt Chris has done since she was 16. She migrated there with her parents, and she stayed after they eventually decided to move back. She built a life, she has 2 amazing kids, I have 2 great cousins, and she's got a great husband. She's retired, and she has a great experience to look back on. But I can't distance myself from the trauma that generations of my family have had to deal with for 8 centuries. And knowing that in America it is so much easier for these far-right populist groups to not only get prominence, but even in some cases get protection under quirks in US law that prevent them from doing what US Grant once did and then eradicate the KKK. But also, God, like, they have a leader whose father was himself immortalized and memorialized by the Ku Klux Klan. Fred Drumpf was no friend to minorities and actually made it a policy of the Trump real estate to not rent out to minority groups. Donald Trump tries to deny everything and somehow manages to even get some small pockets of people within BAME, POC communities supporting him. How he does that, I don't know. But much like the LGBTQIA+ community, he's no friend whatsoever to black people, to Asian people, to Hispanics, to Jews, to anyone, unless they can prove themselves to be a useful idiot. And now an actress who I admire and her entire community of people who descend from Mexico, a country which has produced some of my favorite boxers, Canelo Alvarez, Julio Cesar Chavez, Oscar De La Hoya, and so many others. A nation that I've always admired for their mariachi bands, and the Pixar movie Coco, which I used to get my friend more into Mexican culture. Seeing such a nation of proud, determined, and culturally unique peoples throughout the Spanish-speaking world getting discriminated against for something which is definitely not true? How am I supposed to feel? Other than hurt, ashamed, and frankly just hopeless. Well, those are questions that I hope to answer in time with something a bit more positive, but for now, I want to send a message to Selena. I love you. I love Mexico. You've always been a great inspiration to me and so many millions of people online, and I pray that this will all come to an end. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I pray, Selena, that all Mexican Americans will be saved from this evil regime of Donald Trump's. And I'm here for you, every step of the way. All your fans are here for you. God bless. Goodbye. And don't forget who your fans are.